Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Masks Off. I'm Kim.
And I'm Tia.
And today we have another guest with us. So excited to have our dear friend, Prachi Malhotra. And today we are going to have a conversation about acceptance of the as is, acceptance of self, of feelings, and one that can be truly hard to embrace at times. And we're going to talk about that today, how that actually is playing out in real time. But as always, let me begin with our quote. Life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like. And that is by Lao Tzu. Hopefully I said that right. So Prachi, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where do you live in the world? Do you have kids? Just tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you, first of all, Tia and Kim, for having me over. This is such an honor to be sharing this conversation with you. So I live in Bahrain. Not many people have heard of it. Bahrain's a tiny little island which adjoins Saudi Arabia. The easiest way for people to know where Bahrain is to tell them that it's a 45-minute flight from Dubai. Everybody knows where in the world Dubai is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So my husband and I, we moved to Bahrain about 15 years ago from India, and it's become home. It feels more like home now than India does. So I've got a daughter now who was born in Bahrain. She's turned 13, and she's one of the reasons why I sort of am here today talking about acceptance.
Yes.
Kids are wise. They teach us.
Kids are wise. Kids are your greatest teachers. And this is what I learned at some point. And I'm glad the understanding came to me at a point before I had damaged her more than I already have.
I get that. Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's, yeah.
And what was your background before you had your daughter?
So I am a corporate lawyer by training. And when we moved to Bahrain, I'd already been working for several years and I felt so burnt out. I was so ready to take a long sabbatical. I was calling it sabbatical, but truly what I wanted was to never go back to work. And so we moved to Bahrain. It's a beautiful place, small place. It allows you, and I'd moved from Delhi, which is
big difference.
New Delhi, yeah, big difference. It's a completely different universe. Typical big city, fast-paced life. Bahrain's the complete opposite of that. It gives you the freedom to pace your life. You can live life in the fast lane or slow down. And I chose to slow down so completely. It was beautiful. It's what I needed at that point in time. And I had really made up my mind that I wasn't going to go back to work. But life, what is it they say, that life is what happens to you when you're busy making plans?
Yes. I love that. That's good.
And life happened, and a really great opportunity came my way. I resisted till the last moment, but it was meant to be, and it happened. And once I got back into the workforce, I was happy to don the corporate lawyer hat all over again. And it was great for a few years, 4 years. And then life took another turn. I delivered my daughter preterm. She arrived a very early preemie. Life turned upside down for me completely. And that's when I quit working and decided to be a full-time mom. Looking back, I wouldn't want to do it any differently. It was so good. It was so beautiful, such precious memories. And And then there came a point in time when my daughter was about 5 or so. I think that's when I started getting these knocks, these inner knocks that, oh, by the way, and all through this time, I've lived a very charmed expat life.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I remember growing up, I always had this other side to me, which wanted to know more, seek more, understand things which are not, which go beyond what is what can be perceived by our senses. And I've had a couple of experiences in the past. So there was that inner desire. And I think because there was this deep inner desire, life presents you with opportunities and people that allow you to sort of, go out and figure out for yourself that which you really do want to do. So it all started with me realizing at a certain point in time that despite all my deep love for my daughter and my desire to do things right, get it all right, I was messing things up. And looking back, I'm even embarrassed to talk about those specific instances which are imprinted in my mind. But
we all have them. Trust me.
we all have
I have
them.
mine.
I know. And so that set me off on a quest to really figure out who it is that I am, because you don't know who it is that you are. You're unable to give another person that freedom to be who they are.
100%.
So it all started with me taking and around this time there was another challenge that I went through in the family, and that was something which really turned my world upside down. And this is also the time when a lot of teachers whose teachings I later deep dived into came into my life. Wayne Dyer, Ram Dass, and I sort of started to get a lot of food for inner growth and development. I started to look at life through a different lens. And this is also the time when I got introduced to Dr. Shefali's work. And I am so glad it was so timely. I took a course in conscious parenting, and that really did change my perspective in a massive, massive way. And how I got in touch with Tia was when I wanted to know a little more about it. Thanks to technology, we live in a global village. I was able to get in touch with her and wanted to know more about this. And then I found myself at crossroads. There was so much happening in my life. I think I was just so keen to undergo a complete overhaul of myself, my belief system, and everything else in between. So I was at a crossroads at a point in time when I got in touch with Tia. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go train to be a conscious
parent coach
or something else. And that's when Tia put me in touch with you, and here we are.
I know. I just love how the natural process unfolded for you and how it brought the three of us together.
I mean, it was so organic and so lovely.
Exactly. And like you said, like you had a challenging moment and all of a sudden all these teachers arrived into your life who you further did more deep work with and understood yourself more because of their teachings. And that shift towards acceptance, because you said you were in resistance with certain things, and now you're starting to embrace and live life with more acceptance. And how has that really transformed your experience? Because you kept bringing, changing your perspective, all of that, which is part of acceptance. And you find more peace? How has it shown up for you? I'd love to hear.
Oh, it's changed my universe in such a massive way. I w- I wasn't this person. I was this person wanting to control,
Mm.
wanting things to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Looking back, I realized that was causing me so much suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Things on the outside haven't changed for me. My challenges haven't become smaller.
Yes, exactly.
Nothing on the outside has changed a teeny bit, after I moved into acceptance, but it doesn't feel like struggle anymore. There's that ease and that spaciousness within me. And I think the greatest gift to me has been, and I realized this after I sort of deep dived into neuroscience, I was able to connect the dots, but I was experiencing it anyway. I just have a little more language to talk about it now. I realized I was in survival mode all this time when I was in resistance. It just came from that energy of fear. You're constantly afraid. You're just fearing your worst nightmare is just round the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And that kills that's so crushing to the soul and spirit. It just kills your creative impulses. It kills your vitality. You're just sort of,
Yeah.
you truly are only existing then.
Right.
And you're able, and I'm able to see life through another lens now.
Mm-hmm.
But again, looping back to what I said, nothing on the outside has changed.
It never does.
No. And I
It
love
never
that you bring that
does.
up, because that's such an important piece. Because I think when we start to talk about wisdom and all these teachings and acceptance, it's not that your whole world changes on the outside. What changes is you on the inside, and that ability, to release control, to trust, to flow. And it's not that we don't go into control or we don't go into fear, but then we remember, like, wait a minute, what am I resisting? Everything
Yeah.
around me is the same, but how am I showing up? And it feels
Absolutely.
so different. I can just tell through your story and your sharing that you feel lighter and better and just more capable, and not in resistance and suffering in the same way.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's only when I dropped the rope
I love that.
I realized I was, a world of possibilities opened up to me, and it was always there. But I was so busy trying to control that which wasn't in my control to begin with.
Exactly.
And but suddenly I found myself opening up to what life was presenting me with. And this was all available to me all these years, except that I was so busy doing the other stuff.
Right. Wow.
I love the example that Dr. Shefali used quite often about, and it's just a simple example on the surface, but it just really fits with what we're saying, is when you're at an airport or you're traveling and you have this idea that you're going to get from point A to point B according to your itinerary, according to the schedule, according to what you booked your flight for. And then, that's the airport, and flying is such a perfect example of where you have no control. You have, I just traveled last week from Florida, and everything was going smoothly. And boy, did I think like, oh, I did all this, right? Everything's going just so smoothly. And then boom, 2-hour delay because, the plane has a mechanical problem. So what I love about how Dr. Shefali used the example and talked about the story is that, like, in a moment like that, I had a choice. I could be in resistance to the fact that my flight was being delayed, and I could get all in a tizzy inside, all up in turmoil. Right. Why is this resisting? Oh my God. And you know what? Many of the other people that were flying they were having all these conversations, like, oh my God, they were in a tizzy. Right. They're in such a tizzy over it. And I said, okay, I have a choice. I can do that, or I can just kind of breathe and like, what can I, or how can I use this time and this opportunity for something positive? Like maybe I'll just read, I can read my book. Or what I really said to myself is like, oh, I don't have to worry about getting home any sooner and having to be busy and do all these other things. I get to just relax and chill a little bit longer. I don't know if, there she comes. She's coming back in. There you are. Oh, that's okay. You just turn your microphone up. There you go. Perfect.
I love the airline traveling because it's such a perfect example.
It's a perfect example. And, I think it's okay now because it's already after the fact, but I am going to throw my daughter under the bus for just a minute. And I've had her permission to share, things about her, but it also, and she's fine now, but yesterday she went to class and she got to the building and realized she didn't have her mask, and the security guard wouldn't let her in. Wouldn't let her go up to class because she didn't have a mask, and they didn't have extra ones, downstairs. So her teacher always has extra masks. She's in college, second year. And she called me right away, like so upset. Oh, I'm going to add two things because the second part to this story, Prachi, goes with what you were saying about like with your daughter and everything before. So she was in such a tizzy because she didn't have a mask, and if she was more than 15 minutes late for class, then she's not allowed in. And then they really use attendance toward her grade so she went to like 0 to 100 in terms of fear and anxiety, and her way of dealing with that fear and her anxiety about it was to blame. It was like, oh, that mother effer, blah, blah, blah. He wouldn't give me a mask, and blaming the security guard, and then I got triggered off of her energy. And rather than holding space, I went into blaming her, like, oh, like, so
take
rather
responsibility.
than, right, it's your responsibility, blah, 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 it's like, so, but here's the thing, right? According to like, even the quote, all of it is what it is. Exactly. She had a blunder. I had a blunder. Right. It is what it is. It's not going to help either one of us if we do the second arrow. And then I beat myself up because I didn't hold space for her. I mean, we did a beautiful repair and she calmed down later. She settled, I settled, and we had a beautiful repair. But we could have stayed stuck in that story and keep blaming, and the resistance is the key word that you keep bringing up.
Yeah.
And so I just share all that to say, like, it's never one and done. I mean, I don't know, maybe from your experience, Prachi, do you find that you still do fall back into resistance, and how do you catch yourself and get yourself out?
Absolutely.
I think
on a daily basis, on an hourly basis.
Oh, good. So what's your process?
So how do you get yourself
right?
out?
You catch yourself. Oh, just awareness. I mean, it's not binary, it's not a switch on off. It's you've got to cultivate that muscle. The only way to cultivate that muscle is by catching yourself and bringing yourself back to a more intentional experience. So I do this. I do this on an hourly basis.
That's good. It's good to know, to hear from you and to let listeners know that it's not like this one and done. Like you get to this place of you're now in acceptance and life is all rainbows and sunshine all the time and you've arrived.
No. But the beauty is to accept that you were out of alignment is also acceptance. It's part of acceptance, isn't it?
Yes.
So you don't apply it to situations that you've cherry picked that, it only applies to this. It applies to everything regardless. And I love the example that you just shared about air travel and just taking off on that. What a year 2 years of COVID have taught us that.
That's another great example.
In no uncertain terms about how control is nothing more than an illusion.
Yes.
And I think there was a point in time we've all known these things at an intellectual level. At least I have known a lot of this only at an intellectual level. It took time for it to for it to get integrated into my life. But COVID has been such a ruthless teacher. You realize that you didn't even have control over a home delivery, a basic home delivery.
Right.
I mean, not just the big things in life, and
The little things.
but even the little things, things that the little trivial things.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, there's always opportunities to practice. And I think what you brought up too is so important is we can read the books, we can read the wisdom, we can have all that, and it can all be up in our brain and in our head, and we can intellectualize it like I should, which is another resistance aspect, because I know this, why am I not applying it? But it takes time to integrate and practice, and we can know as much as we want in our head, but if we don't take those mindful, intentional action steps towards applying what we have up in our brains, we're still, it's part of the process. And like you said, it doesn't always have to be these big things. It can be the little tiny things, and those are actually the easier ones to practice with typically, because we practice with little ones. So when we have that bigger experience, it's like, wait, oh, I remember, the delivery person was late and I was okay. I learned how to be accepting of that. It was what it was. Well, I don't know what happened, why they were late. It shows up when it shows up. So now with this bigger emotional piece, do I want to resist or do I want to step in? Or if I resist, like Kim, you were sharing with your daughter, okay, now let me have compassion and grace to repair and shift back into acceptance. So it's not always a linear path each and every time.
Just like mindfulness, we're also deeply conditioned, and it starts so early on in life. It just starts with the judgments that are placed on us as little children. Right. Good, bad, good, bad. Exactly. You learn that you've got to be a certain way to qualify for love, for attachment. And that's the start of it all, isn't it?
It is.
And then we learn that everything, we learn to place labels on everything, good, bad, and there's that attachment. Good gets us what we want, bad takes us away from what we would like. So there's that constant battle in the head. And for me personally, when I think my journey on the path became a lot easier when I dropped judgments, when I stopped putting labels on things, good, bad, this, that. It is what it is. Yes. And that just made it a lot easier for me to cover distance on the path.
So I have a question, because before I even was like doing all this work, I totally didn't know that I was in resistance. So how would you describe or say that one could know they're in resistance? What does the resistance, when you are in resistance yourself, what does that look like in terms of your feelings? What does that look like in terms of how you act? That, like, now it's resistance, but maybe you didn't before, or other people may not even know that they're in resistance.
So for me, I got the language for this after I studied neuroscience, and I was studying neuroscience to help me with my work. And that's where I get this language from. I was able to trace back and see that every time I was coming from a place of fear, I was in survival mode, I was in resistance. Contracted. You can literally feel it in the body. Your body tenses, your consciousness constricts. Everything, you're operating from that small place, where you are this where you have lost connection with others and the world at large. And you're so defensive. There's something to protect. You feel threatened, you feel frightened. And the circumstances in my life, when I sort of analyzed them, the things that I was most in resistance with, when I looked back, it all went back to the energy of fear. I was afraid that things would pan out in a way that would just turn my world upside down all over again.
Right.
Yeah. So this is how I got my pulse on it. So every time I find myself getting activated, I know that I'm resisting something.
And what a great quick check-in with oneself. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, am I getting defensive? Am I being reactive? What?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm resisting. So now I'm not in acceptance.
Yeah.
So it
you feel
builds
it in
that
your body.
awareness.
Yeah,
Oh, our body
you
is
just feel
wise.
it in your body, right? Your body holds so much wisdom. So I can sense my voice, my tone changing, my voice going up, or I could just feel that in my heart, and I catch myself.
Right. And we can catch ourselves once we are aware and start to be noticing all of those little things you were talking about. Because until we have that understanding and awareness, how are we supposed to know we're in resistance? It just seems normal.
True. I mean, the fish doesn't know that it's swimming in water.
Exactly.
That's why I asked the question, because I did not know before that I was in resistance all the time. And I know for me personally, one of the ways that resistance shows up is when I hear myself saying the word why, like, why is this happening? Why is that happening? You know, why this, why that?
Why are they doing that?
Exactly. Yeah. And that just means I'm in resistance to the reality of, I was even doing it yesterday when I was listening to some of Gabor Mate's videos, and, you know, I was just listening to, the stories about all the suffering, right? The people, like all the suffering that we go through as kids. And then I kept saying, why, like, why does that have to be? Why does it have to be that way? Why do kids have to be separated from their true self? Why are parents like this? Why? And it doesn't really help or serve anything to ask that. It just, it is what it is. That's just how it's been for hundreds and hundreds of years, that this is the way it's generational patterns of passing down certain things and conditioning and society. It just is.
Right.
And then I can also feel, when I'm in that space, that I feel powerless and I feel helpless because I can't do anything. But it's not true, because as Gabor, if I'm saying his name right, with one of the case studies, because the gentleman was saying the same thing about his situation. He was working in a psychiatric center trying to help other kids. And he felt like, I can't do anything. I can't change the system, the psychiatric system, the hospitals. And again, like you said earlier, Prachi, it's the reframe or the rephrase. And Gabor helped him to see, like, well, don't you show up for these kids, these patients? Do you listen to them? Do you see them? Do you hear them? Do you understand them? Do you have compassion? Yep. So you do have power. Right. You may not be able to change the system, but you do actually have power to do something, which comes back to, I absolutely love my favorite prayer from, well, it's not originally from 12 steps, but they use it, which is the Serenity Prayer, which comes back to saying, what is it? God, grant me the serenity and peace to accept the things that I cannot change, which are people, places, and things, the courage to change what I can, which is just me.
Right.
And the wisdom to know that difference. So then once I come back to that, like, okay, I cannot change the suffering in the world. I can't change what's happened to my kids or my parents and blah, blah, blah. All I can do is what I'm doing right now, which is showing up on this platform, doing my inner work, showing up differently with my kids. And that's where the power comes from.
Right.
But I was my whole life, I was, why this, why that, why this, resistance. And I didn't know I was in resistance.
Yeah. Oh, this is the area I struggle most in even now. I have come a long way, but to accept that you cannot do a thing for your loved ones, you cannot make choices for them, you cannot make empowering choices for them, or you there's really nothing that you can do for them to change the course of their life. This requires deep work. I'm still away from that. This is the area where I struggle the most. With regard to everything else, I think I've covered good ground, but this is the piece. I think this is where my growth lies.
And it's hard to watch people you care about suffer, and you want to help and you want to change. But when we try to insert ourselves too much, we're disempowering them. And so we're actually causing more suffering, because we're taking away their ability to rise and make those choices from within. And we see that happening when people overstep. And let's use kids, for example, all of a sudden they don't have the resilience built up because they haven't had to experience heartache and challenges and rise from them, because we're either removing them so they don't feel them, or we fix it for them, but then they don't have that experience of being able to step in and make those choices, whether they make a choice that helps them or doesn't help them. It's helping them either way, because they're going to learn from it.
Yeah, it's developing character and strength in the long run.
But it is hard.
It is hard. It is hard, especially in the context of adults. When you really do know that all that it takes, and because I have benefited from it, and because Kim does the same work. Look at me, Kia.
Kim and Kia combined.
That's right.
I know.
I love that, actually. I do.
It is nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Food for thought. So yeah, what I was saying was, I have benefited so much from this. I am such a different person now, because I actually it took a lot of courage for me to dive into my past, to undo the identities that I had created for myself based on belief systems which I had just picked up, which I had absorbed, and which is what happens to most of us adults, isn't it?
It is.
Where our personalities are just a combination of survival strategies and coping mechanisms that we've learned along the way. So, and when you do that work and you see people in your close relationships, they can benefit from it, but
they can't do it till they're ready.
You can't do it for them. Yeah. Everybody's got to walk their own path.
Exactly. And so more opportunity for us to practice acceptance of the as is.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I am convinced that, the universe connives to present us with opportunities and with circumstances and people that will bring out that growth in us. These are all, as somebody said, they're all the celery and the broccoli in our lives that we don't want, but we must have.
That's great. I've never
I love that.
The celery and the broccoli. That's great.
That is a good one. Yeah, that one is hard for me. It's my biggest teacher as well, because especially for my kids, and they're young adults, but I see their patterns and I want to change them and fix them, because when I watch the patterns, it makes me anxious. So then there's my resistance I want to fix. And then on top of it, the guilt comes in, because I know that I contributed or co-created their suffering by conditioning them when they were little. And so therefore I want even more to fix.
I know, it's such a vicious cycle, right? Woo. Like, okay.
And
let
every
me
now and
step
then I
off and
get
come
off.
back on. Yep.
Yeah, I get off every now and then, and I'm in a place of acceptance, which is what
Yep.
we're talking about. And I'm, I breathe, and then I get back on the hamster wheel again, spinning around, and then I get off.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the dance of life, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
is. It is the dance of life and acceptance. I love that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Should we move into the 5 questions?
Yeah, the 5 questions.
All right.
Are you
here
ready,
we go.
Prachi?
Are you ready? So whatever
Fine.
comes to your mind, don't judge.
All
Give
right.
acceptance of what comes from within.
All
right.
right.
So our podcast is masks off. So we wear our masks, right? So what's the most prominent mask that you wear and still comes back into your life, no matter how much you work with it?
Perfection.
That's a strong one. I'm familiar with that as well.
Me too.
It's a nasty one. It's such a nasty one.
It is. It's very sneaky.
Very sneaky, very sneaky. And I really do understand that there is no such thing as perfection.
Right.
It's just growth. It's just, you just sort of progress. I mean, there is a perfection is an illusion, just as much an illusion as control is.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
yet, yeah.
It still shows up. So you are in an amazing part of the world. I mean, I've seen pictures of where you live and it looks incredible when you share. I just never forget the birds singing that one time you posted that. So if you could go anywhere in the world other than where you live, where would you go?
I am so big on nature. It's a really big thing for me. So I am happy to be anywhere in the world where I can be in a natural surrounding. And by the way, my family knows this. I often say that one day I'm going to give everything up and see if they let me buy a piece of land in Yosemite and live there. I'm so happy to live there for the rest of my life. Gosh, it's got everything. Yep.
What is your favorite way to take care of yourself? Like when you have a moment to really just honor you, what do you do?
It changes from time to time. Currently I am going through a mindfulness phase. So that I think it really rejuvenates me from within. So when I have a moment, I do that. I was out a little while ago to pick up my daughter from school, and I was sitting in the car and I just shut my eyes and I had a beautiful 10 minutes of practice until she comes knocking on the door and goes, "What's wrong with you? I always find you doing this." So yeah, I'm big on that.
That's great.
That nourishes me.
Beautiful. If you have a bucket list, what's at the top of your list?
If you'd asked me this a month ago, I'd probably say something else. But now I've really, really understood the joy of living in a way where you're present to your moment.
Beautiful.
I have never felt so alive in my life. I think I've had a whole 10, 20 years of my life just in existence mode, in survival mode. Things were good. I've lived a charmed expat life, but I think I wasn't really living from that. From that deep presence, which I've tasted only recently, and I absolutely love it. It's just
that's everything.
Makes me feel so alive. Yeah,
incredible. And the last question: what is one book that's changed your life?
Oh, there's so many. The one book which opened up my being to exploring spirituality, which I think has had the biggest impact on me, is the Autobiography of a Yogi. Have you heard of this book?
I have not. I'm writing it down, actually.
I was actually quite surprised, when I learned that Steve Jobs, this was the only book that he carried on his Kindle. And I learned about this only a couple
Really?
of years ago. Yeah. So, by the way, I read this book about nearly 20 years ago. And I was quite amazed to hear that this was the only book that he carried on his Kindle. And everybody at Apple got a copy of the book when they joined. And all the people that attended his funeral went back with a copy of this.
Wow.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I
definitely
love
need to
oh,
read
that's
it.
a good story.
It is an extraordinary book. It introduces the world that we don't perceive through our senses in an extraordinary way. Yeah.
Great. See, that's why we have these questions.
Yeah.
As much for us as everybody
absolutely.
else, right?
So this has been such a good conversation. It really has, and one that I like have to come back to all the time. So we are so glad that you came on the show today. And it was just such a pleasure to have you. And your presence is just, I could tell you're like really practicing to be in the present moment, because you're just grounded and your energy is just so good, so calming. So thank you so much for coming on today. And we will include your email address in the show notes, so that if anyone wants to reach out, if they have further questions or just want to connect with you, they'll be able to do that. Any other thoughts, Tia?
No, I just want to thank you for joining us and sharing your process and your experiences and your wisdom. It's been beautiful.
Thank you so much, Kim and Tia, for having me over. So on this beautiful conversation. So grateful to you, and lovely to connect with you, Tia, after such a long time.
I know. It's been great.
It's been lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
So have a great day, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good day. Thanks, everyone. Bye.